So I would like to extend special welcome to our friends from Germany and from Sweden, who will be talking about the submarine system and the ORCA program. I would also, of course, like to invite Ms. Darowska, the research fellow at the Pulaski Foundation, who will be leading the discussion. Thank you.
Hello, good morning everyone. Thank you very much for coming, and we have 20 minutes for our session. I will ask questions. We have 1 minute for each participant. We have 2 participants, you can see. So I will start just starting with the first questions. We had a very good presentation about the strategic defense review just a while ago. So this is one thing that is happening now in Poland. Another big concept for Poland is a development plan, looking from the economic perspective. The question to you, I wanted to ask to you is how the ORCA program, the submarines purchase, may impact the economy in the future to Poland, how we can benefit this.
Okay. Yeah, I can start. I work with R&D, so I like R&D. And I think all development and economic development starts with doing R&D. So I think the ORCA program should include a lot of development, indigenous development, and also a lot of technology transfer, of course. And Poland must understand the system they are buying. In Sweden, we have done studies on the Gripen project, for instance, a few years ago, where some economics professors did studies and showed that you get a spin-off in the society by a factor of 2, maybe, if you invest in a very advanced defense program. That means if you spend 1 billion, you get 2 billion back in societal benefits in the economics. And a similar study was done a few years ago also for the Collins class in Australia. So I think generally going into an advanced defense development program will benefit the economy, definitely.
Mr. Schön.
I think that Poland as a shipbuilding country is prone to benefit from any shipbuilding concepts that are being executed inside the Navy or for the Navy. We also see from a TKMS perspective, definitely the chance of getting on board of the submarines that would be procured for Poland under the ORCA program, that any company that's getting on board is a natural successor of companies that might be replaced on board or that are qualified for our future fleets. We have done similar concepts in the past. We have integrated, for example, ESM suppliers from South Africa, which has been joining us on our journey to roll out new subs in third-party countries. So the objective is not to bring the maximum on board. You need to bring in the maximum of capabilities that is already existing. You can raise that through technology transfer to a level which really is unprecedented in the whole wide world, and that makes these companies and their products attractive for the world market and contributes also to our own benefit, which then, in the end, is the concept that we would like to follow in.
Thank you. Moving to this next question, the condition to use technology properly is to know it very well. The question to you is what Poland should improve to benefit, what gaps you can see in our economy, in our ecosystem, to absorb the ORCA program properly? Your suggestion?
I think the absorption of such a program means to bring it alive inside the country. We want to deliver the platform, including the capabilities to run it over the entire life cycle. inside the life cycle of a shipbuilding platform, you will see refurbishments, upgrades, and capabilities. Our entire philosophy of technology transfer and enhancement in the country is backed up to the level that it is necessary for any country to maintain these capabilities inside the country itself, to be able to use the goods we deliver, defense goods, also in any defense scenario. So that means we want to bring it to the level of an absorbment, in your words, that the entire life cycle can be maintained inside the country.
Yeah, you have to realize that a submarine system lives for a very long time, at least 30 years, sometimes 50 years. And that means you need to have the capability to take care of the system and do upgrades and modernization as well. Because today we have a certain security situation in this region, in the Baltics and so on. But this system will also live in 20, 30 years. And how will the situation look like then? And then maybe you need to add new functionality and capabilities on the platform. And then you must have that knowledge to be able to do that in the future.
Thank you. And in this context, just moving forward with technology and technology control, another important question is, you told about the technology transfer, and another issue which is being discussed in Poland often is the control over technology. So what Poland could or should ask for in terms of technology control, the access to the source code, and so on. What would be a suggestion to Poland actually to play the game properly for the future?
This is a very tricky question. IP and stuff like that, that is a tricky question. And of course, there are different levels of knowledge and IP. There are the most secret ones, like the signature management systems maybe, and they are quite difficult to address. But then you have more common knowledge, how you construct and things like that. And of course, this is a discussion that must be taken. And I think if you have a strategic alliance between the countries, you should be able to go very deep in this technology transfer. And probably, and of course, the governments also you need some government-to-government relations doing this kind of technology transfer. So that is all I can say. I can't say specifically what would be released and so on. That's above my level.
You cannot boil it down to, let's say, this line of source code needs to be released and available in the country. I think what we need to ensure is really independence in the operation, and we need to ensure independence in the upgradation. So if we bring it forward from source code to IP rights, definitely a customer needs to have the capability and the rights to do with his platforms whatever is his wish or his intention. And he needs to be able to maintain this over the entire lifetime, also in a wartime scenario. That needs to be ensured. We need to differ there a little bit from the industry's fears of delivering the entire technology to one of the competitors, but you can cope on that with industrial concepts. So we have to differ a little bit there, the state's interests from the industry's interests. But I'm pretty sure, and we have run that throughout the world in many countries, that these acquisition strategies are stringent. And if you look at NATO countries having acquired submarines, you will find lots of users of submarines that have been delivered in exactly this context.
I have a comment also. It depends on what level of ambitions the nation, the procuring nation, has. Some nations, they have an ambition to have an indigenous design capability to develop submarines in the future and exporting them on the export market. And in that sense, we are creating our own competitors. That's much more tricky situation. Some nations have an ambition to have indigenous capability, but only for their own needs. And that's another situation. And some nations they want to buy more off the shelf and just have the capability and rely on others when it comes to know-how and technology and so on.
Thank you. Next question is the background, the issue which appears from time to time in our discussion is the balance between the security and deterrence and commercial benefits that the country may gain, paying first for technology. The question to you is how Poland should evaluate the actually 3 different offers we got from you and another supplier. What should we look at specifically to choose the right option for us? Whether the best technology would be the right one for us, or whether we should look for some totally from a different angle.
When I started here in Poland, I learned that in discussions with the Navy, we were supposed to, first of all, offer the best technology. This was the ambition. I think if we look at balancing this best technology versus industrial interests inside the country, because that's the bottom line, we have to see what is the capability of the Polish industry to deliver inside such a program. We have done this analysis. We have been talking to CTM. We have been talking to the shipyards, and so on and so on. What drives the program is your defense need, and not a stimulation of your economy. But there's no sense in buying something abroad that you can procure also inside the country. And that's something we want to make sure. We want to utilize what is there, but I would not expect you willing to pay a premium to get Polish content on board. That's my expectation. And
yeah, I can agree with most of that. I think it should be a balance. I don't think it's a contradiction, actually, to have benefits for the economics and having good technology and so on. I think you can find a good balance. That's my point.
Okay. So just leaving the economics aspects, which are always difficult to discuss, the question about the purpose we are looking for, the submarines will be used, because Poland is a country which is landlocked in the Baltic. Whether we should buy submarines which will be used in Baltic Sea, or should we look overseas for ocean missions? Mr. Berg, please.
I would say the Baltic Sea is one of the most complex operational environments you can find. It's very shallow, it's very complex hydroacoustics. You still have tens of thousands of unexploded ordnances and mines laying around in the Baltic Sea. You have heavy sea traffic, complex archipelagos, and so on. So it's a very, very challenging environment. And I would say if you're able to develop and operate a submarine in that environment, I don't think the big ocean is that much of a trick, actually. Maybe you need some more fuel, going a little bit further. And I think the Swedish Navy has shown that during the last years when they have been out on international operations. I mean, the submarines that we have in Sweden, they are designed for the Baltic primarily, the one we have today. But they have shown excellent results going out and doing operations in the big blue sea and so on. So I think if you can do it for a Baltic and shallow environment, the big seas are no problem.
Mr. Schön?
Yeah, I tend to agree, although not to the full extent. I mean, basically, the two of us sitting here, we have supplied custom-made submarines for the Baltic Sea as a deterrent inside the Baltic. And I think that was also the developmental aim for both classes of submarines. Both navies are using them also to go abroad, to widen their horizon, going to Mediterranean or going once or twice across bigger oceans. For sure, there are capabilities you want to have in a real expeditionary warfare submarine that are non-existent in, let's say, the submarines that are optimized for a Baltic Sea. The mine threat in the Baltic is significant. We have to dig into the signatures especially. But what the operational needs of Poland are, from the industry side, I cannot judge. If the priority is on the Baltics, I think you have the right stuff here on stage.
Thank you. And the last question, looking on internationally on the submarine programs, there are countries which are modernizing or buying new boats, like Brazil, India, Australia. Just maybe we can take a lesson to Poland. What you can say about what those countries are doing in their modernization programs? What they are doing properly? What they are doing wrong? Your comments, please. Mr. Berg, please.
Yeah. Without mentioning any names of the countries and so on, they have different ambitions. Some have, as I said, indigenous design ambitions, and they want a lot of technology transfer to be able to do their own designs. And some, they want a bespoke design for their specific needs. And of course, they have different ambitions, and they are, in that way, they're also doing the procurement in different ways. Saying what is right and what is wrong, it's up to the nation itself and its security policies and what they want in the future, I would say. So the trick for us, coming from the industry, is be able to handle all these different levels of needs that you find from the procurement countries.
Mr. Schön, thank you.
Looking at these three specific programs, I really pity that our competition is not here from France. But to state so, the three countries have not only this supplier in common, they also have an ambition in common. They want to be a regional power, or they wanted to be a regional power, meaning they wanted to have submarines that were reaching far beyond all the other uses we have. We have two nations in there who have the ambition to build their own nuclear submarine in the future, and we have one nation which wants to have out-of-area operation far away from their own coastline. I think this is the operational scenario that really differs from what I see here. If I look at how do they do their modernization, I mean, you've been supplying submarines to Australia before. I would guess you can judge a little bit on their modernization programs. We have been supplying submarines to India. We have been supplying also submarines to Brazil before in the past. And we now just see how modernization programs work there. We see that primes in the areas are doing the modernizations, and for economic reasons, they from time to time come back to us to support them with specific items. Not that they cannot do it at all by themselves, but basically because it's more economic to buy where you have procured it before.
Thank you. It's all from my side. So if you have any comments wanted to say something about
I was just
from
going
your professional background, because we have persons who are totally different in their, let's say, role in the company.
Say again. What?
The question to you, just looking from your angle, because you are R&D and you are the sales person. So.
Okay. Let me say a few words. What's ongoing in Sweden? In Sweden, submarine capability is a national security interest. It's pointed out as that. So there's a lot of focus on underwater technology and so on. And we think that to be successful in the future, we need to look more on dual-use technologies, because underwater technology is not only submarines and defense, it's also being able to use them for offshore natural resources and also for monitoring the environment and so on, what we call the societal benefits of underwater technology. So actually, just this year, we in Sweden released something called the National Research and Innovation Agenda, which I am doing some propaganda for here, because this is an initiative. It's not a defense initiative. It's an initiative between industry and academia and the government, saying that underwater technology is important, that we should work together in a triple helix way. And we should be able to use more civilian technology also in defense.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not coming from the research and development background. My background is I'm a naval architect. So, but I would like to look at it more from a broader picture, worldwide needs for submarines. If I look at the market picture as it is currently, the needs are picking up. We see shifting interest in the security threat scenarios. Just recently, we had a significant shift in political balancing, and we realized that some countries went in there unprepared. There was a decrease of defense spending in navies, and especially with a long-term procurement product like a submarine, this needs some lead time. We talk about several years until a submarine from bringing up the program to contract to delivery of the sub. That's much longer than any political environment is changing. So this is a question of having it ready for the eventual case no one really wants to have there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Schön and Mr. Berg, for this interesting session. And